we did have a loss in this game. Outside of the score,
Mm-hmm.
we also lost one of our premier defensive linemen, Jonathan Allen, got injured. I believe it was a torn pectoral muscle. They said out for the season. Where do we go from here, man?
Yeah,
rough.
It is. This is a big loss. I think it's a big loss because he is also a big part of the locker room. He's a captain. You know, he's a commanding figure in there. The guys rally around him. You know, I know we're seeing a lot of stuff from Frankie Louvu as like the hype man. That used to be Jonathan, but I also think, you know, I think he's just a big presence in the locker room.
Yeah,
and he does a lot on the field. You know, Dan Quinn was talking about, you know, there's a lot of things that players can't do all that he does, you know, and there's been a lot of criticism so far about him and Duran and what you know, the production they've been doing. But you certainly saw and heard from the coaches that like losing him is going to alter what they have to do on defense. And it's a significant blow. So it kind of sucks.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the other, you know, the edge rushers and other defensive members, it was by committee. You know, you had Armstrong, you had Baptiste, you had, you know, Farrell, you had a number of these guys, Fowler, all these guys coming in and out. And, you know, shout out to Jazon Newton, who's been coming in and trying to help out with Payne and everything like that. But Payne and Allen were those two statues. Those are the two formidable forces in the middle. Obviously, the highest paid D tackles, but this is a big loss, man. This is a big blow for us. More because obviously, like you said, he was one of the guys that we were definitely having on that prove it, you know what I mean? Earn the money essentially with, you know, everything that's been going on now. He's not able to do that. But for me, I wonder, does this do, like you said, they have great things to say about him. But we did have that thought, and there's a number of times where we talked about, we're going to talk about trading a little bit later, but there's a number of times that we had talked about, you know, he would be a good piece if we wanted to go, you know, use him as trade bait, X, Y, and Z. Obviously, we can't trade him now with the injury, but does this spell the end of his time in Washington? Or, I mean, do we try to take a chance next year?
It very well could be that he played his last game. His contract offers some like opportunities to get out of his contract this offseason where you wouldn't have a dead cap penalty. You know, you're talking about the fact that he'll be in his 30s. You know, you drafted Johnny Newton in the second round. This is a very easy game for fans to look at the roster and say, this is probably someone they would look to move on from. So yeah, like that's what part of it kind of stinks, not just from the fact of like, this could be his last game, but for this guy, this team is finally winning. Yeah. This team finally turned the corner with the guy who's stayed loyal. I mean, he signed an extension here. This is a guy who's from Ashburn, Virginia. He got drafted by the team, you know, when they were the Redskins. He signed an extension to stay here. He's been through 3 head coaches. Technically, you could say 4 because we had the interim with Callahan. You know, so like it's like for right in here, it gets you in the feels here where you're like, this is the type of player who deserves to have some happipiness on the football field and with the team he's been at. So that's the part where like you start going down that rabbit hole of like, he might be trade bait. Adam Peters is a bottom line. He's a black and white. He doesn't, you know, type general manager from what we can see right now. That's the kind of stuff that kind of bothers you. But I'm also going to try and like to stay back and say, I'm rooting for this. Even though they don't wear this, but I'm rooting for the front of the jersey, and I can't be rooting for the back if I want to see good things happen in this franchise. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man. I go back to that interview he had last year with the wife beater and the do-rag on, and he's just like, I'm pissed, man. I've been here 7 years, and we ain't doing crap, man. Something's got to change. And then it's like, it changed. It finally changed for you, buddy. Now this. He's saying in the comments, I worry about the contract talks with Allen next year. I mean, we all do. I mean, we know the type of piece he is to the puzzle on and off the field. At his best. Unfortunately, he has not been playing up to it as much prior to this, but you just hope that they, you know, maybe they give him the benefit of the doubt. But to your point, it's all about that bottom line. It's all about where they're going. I know, you know, Ab and I have talked about our little Ron's guys comments, and you know, he's from that regime. and that you got to go back to that old adage, man. The best ability is availability, and if we're looking to go down that stretch and he's not on the field, I don't know if we can justify that, but
well, and that's kind of, we talked about with Ron's regime and the fact that we put so much money into the defensive line and we signed 2 players from the same position for big money contract. That's really not something that you do. But Jonathan Allen, the hard part was Jonathan Allen is the guy who's a little bit more consistent in his play. He's the one who goes to the Pro Bowl more than Duran does in that time. So it was like, not only was he the first, so therefore they're like, yeah, he's worth it. We should, but he has been more consistent when he plays. But he's also the one who has suffered the injuries. He's had 2, if not 3. I mean, his rookie year, he had the Liz Frank injury and was out. So he only played about 5 or 6 games and he was gone. And our defense took a turn when he left. So he's had some significant injuries that hurt him. Whereas Duran has not when you're trying to, but it is also, Adam Peters is going to create this roster in a certain manner where he also may look at this and say, you don't keep 2 highly paid defensive tackles, you get rid of 1. And this is his chance. And even if Allen was to say, I want to be part of this, I'm willing to do a restructure and take less, it's still, Peters could be like, I'm still putting too much money into one position that you don't do. So now let's look at what do we got to do about it then? Yeah. And I will say this, if there's going to be a position on our defense where could we suffer an injury and have some pieces, D-tackle probably is the one position on defense where it's like, well, there are some guys. Mm-hmm. We did spend a 2nd-round pick on Johnny Newton. The staff, the front office loves this guy. All right. Now, I will say this. He's been a little bit slow to kind of make some plays. I kind of wonder if his feet are bothering him. He's had 2 he had surgeries on the offseason on both feet. And I would imagine that he probably is good enough to play, but he may not be the same player he was last year at Illinois. And we may not see him really develop until next year. Yeah. But he's going to get some significant minutes. The other guy, this is the one that kind of surprises, is Phil Mathis. And Dan Quinn has singled him out to say, when Phil is in there at the nose technique, he can really do some things that not many guys can do. He can really occupy some blockers. He was really giving him some praise. And that's 2 weeks in a row that Dan Quinn in his post-game pressers has talked about Phil Mathis. And he's a guy that I've been ready to get rid of for years.
Yeah.
So I will be the first one to say, whatever they're seeing, I've never seen out there.
Right.
What they're seeing in practice in the games, I'm always like, get this mother out of here. And
get him out. It took him 2 years to get on the field. I mean, he was hurt when he first got here. So, I mean, the fact that he's out there, look, one thing that I do feel encouraged about this whole situation is that what we've seen this year is that they have been moving people in and out. They've been moving guys around. We saw at one point that Jonathan Allen was playing at edge, and, they had him doing that to give him different looks. With those pieces that you talked about, you have Newton. Obviously, we still have Payne, and then we have Mathis. They're coming in. They have high. We also have these guys that I talked about on the edge coming around. I feel like, and I'm going to put my trust in this coaching staff, and I really feel like Dan's going to really kind of move things around. A lot of stuff that we saw in Dallas Cowboys, DC. That's a lot of what we saw from them last year. Is what I think we're going to see or at least is what I'm hoping we're going to see. So that's why for me, when I heard this, yes, obviously for that heart, for that commander love, I was, this is terrible. But when I was telling this to Alex and Anton, we might be, to your point, we might be perfectly suited for this situation where we can mix matches. This isn't like a B-Rob where it's either Eckler or McNichols and you see the drop off. You got guys in here where it's a unit of 4, potentially 5 if we go 5-3, or 5-2, where you got a bunch of guys that can come in and kind of piece by piece fill up that space of what he has left behind. So I think when we look at that position on that D line and with those linebackers who definitely help out that D, because that line doesn't have to do everything now, because we know Luvu and Wagner are flying around back there, so they can kind of pick up where there's a letdown there. I feel encouraged though. I think that with the way they coach, I think they might have some under their sleeve. I'm hoping the schedule is going to help us. Still a big blow, but I think we're going to be all right.
Yeah, I'm certainly intrigued. I mean, I think the chance to really get a chance to look at Johnny Newton from a long standpoint of getting a lot of playing time, then yeah, I think that's going to be. We're getting to that segment, Nate.
We're getting
Next
about
segment,
that.
very close. I think that part's really intriguing. Don't forget they also activated Efe Obata last week, and he played 30% of snaps. So like they put him in immediately, and he's kind of a DND tackle, a little bit smaller type player to play tackle, but he is in there. And honestly, though, I think you go to Duran and say, hey, we need contract year Duran Payne to show back up. Now we need you because your battery mate's gone. The guy you've been rocking with at Alabama, the guy you've been rocking with since you got here, he's gone.
Yeah.
We
the
need
guy you
to
show
up. Yeah. The guy you came to blows with on the sidelines, and now you're best friends. But we need you. You got to step up even more, especially because you're going to have a rookie next to you. You got an inexperienced Phil Mathis next to you. You're going to need to step up.
And I think this is where we might see how valuable of a teammate he is. We all talk about he's a good guy and a great teammate. What kind of wisdom can you give to these guys? What kind of things can you tell them that, hey, I've seen this. Hey, when this lineman is leaning this way, they're pulling, they're doing X, Y, and Z. What tells can you go and tell to these guys that are coming in behind you and help them out? And I think that's going to play a big role, because what we've seen in the McGee's, in Sam Still, in a lot of these guys, we have guys that are team captains, that are leaders, that are iron sharpening iron. So if he can be a big help in that and help these guys to come up, even if he's not on the field, I think that will bode well for him. But we already know how the bottom line works. So again, Peters, Quinn, all you guys, I'm with you on it, but it stinks. It stinks for Jonathan Allen.